Excavator. Before a single wall goes up or a road takes shape, something has to tear into the earth first. That something is almost always this machine. The excavator is the starting point of nearly every major construction project on the planet, and without it, most of what gets built simply could not happen. Its purpose is to dig, and it does that one job with a level of precision and power that no other machine comes close to matching. A long hydraulic arm reaches down into the ground, bites through soil, clay, or even rock, and swings the load clear in one smooth motion. The cab rotates a full 360 degrees, so the operator never has to reposition the entire machine just to dump a load. Excavators dig the foundations that skyscrapers stand on, the trenches that carry water and gas lines under cities, and the channels that make modern drainage systems possible. They also work in demolition, mining, and disaster recovery, anywhere that moving or removing large amounts of material is the first problem that needs solving. Everything else on a construction site waits for this machine to finish its work before the real building can begin. Bulldozer. Few machines on Earth communicate raw power as clearly as this one does just by sitting still. The bulldozer exists for one purpose: moving whatever is in the way. Its massive front blade pushes soil, rock, debris, and vegetation aside with a force that makes the resistance almost irrelevant. Before roads get built, before foundations get dug, before any other machine rolls onto a site, the bulldozer arrives first to clear and level the ground so that everything else can follow. It runs on wide steel or rubber tracks instead of wheels, spreading its enormous weight across a larger surface area and giving it grip even on soft, loose, or heavily sloped terrain that would stop a wheeled machine immediately. Many bulldozers also carry a ripper attachment at the rear, a single heavy claw that drags through compacted soil or broken rock to break it up before the blade pushes it aside. Without the bulldozer, construction sites would begin with terrain too rough and unstable for any other equipment to safely operate on. Wheel loader. This machine does not dig, and it does not grade. Its entire purpose is to move massive amounts of loose material from one place to another, and it does that job faster than almost anything else on a construction site. The wide bucket at the front scoops up sand, gravel, crushed stone, or demolition debris, and lifts it high enough to dump directly into a waiting truck in seconds. Because it runs on large rubber tires instead of tracks, it moves across a job site quickly, cutting down the time between each loading cycle and keeping trucks supplied at a pace that keeps the whole operation moving. On quarries, in ports, at recycling facilities, and across busy construction sites, this machine is the reason material keeps flowing without interruption. The moment a wheel loader stops working, everything waiting on that material stops with it. Backhoe loader. Most machines on a construction site do one thing well. This one does two completely different jobs without the operator ever leaving the seat. At the front sits a wide loading bucket for scooping and moving material. At the rear sits a digging arm nearly identical to a small excavator, capable of cutting precise trenches for pipes, cables, and drainage systems. That combination makes the backhoe loader one of the most practical machines ever designed for medium-sized construction work, since hiring two separate machines for two separate tasks costs far more than bringing in one machine that handles both. It travels on wheels rather than tracks, which means it can drive between job sites on public roads without needing a transport trailer. This alone saves contractors significant time and cost on projects spread across multiple locations. Dump truck. The dump truck does not dig, grade, or lift. Its job is simpler than all of those, but without it, none of them matter. Every excavator fills buckets with material that needs to go somewhere. Every bulldozer pushes debris that eventually has to leave the site. The dump truck is what makes that removal possible. A heavy-duty bed sits mounted on the frame, hinged at the rear, and connected to a hydraulic lifting system that tips the entire load out in seconds without anyone climbing in the back to shovel. Standard dump trucks work on roads between sites, carrying sand, gravel, dirt, and construction waste wherever it needs to go. On mining sites, a completely different scale takes over, with off-road dump trucks standing over 20 feet tall and carrying loads heavy enough to fill dozens of standard trucks in a single run. Construction grinds to a halt the moment there is nowhere for the material to go. The dump truck is what keeps everything moving by making sure that never happens. Motor grader. This machine does something most people never think about, and yet they benefit from it every single time they drive on a smooth, well-drained road. The motor grader's entire purpose is precision surface shaping, creating road surfaces that are level, properly sloped, and consistent enough to handle years of traffic without cracking or flooding. A long adjustable blade sits mounted beneath the center of the machine, angled and tilted with extraordinary precision to shave the ground surface into exactly the right profile. On road construction projects, the grader prepares the base layer before any asphalt gets laid, because pavement placed on an uneven base deteriorates far faster than it should. On unpaved rural roads, it maintains the surface through regular passes that repair the damage caused by rain and heavy traffic. Modern versions often use GPS guidance systems that automatically adjust the blade position to match pre-programmed design specifications, cutting the margin for error to nearly nothing. Tower crane. Standing at the edge of a city construction site and looking straight up, the tower crane is almost always the highest point in view, rising above everything else still being built below it. Its purpose is straightforward but critical, lifting heavy materials to heights that no other machine on the site can reach. Steel beams, concrete panels, machinery, and building supplies all get attached to the hook and carried upward while the arm rotates to position the load exactly where workers need it. Without the tower crane, high-rise construction as it exists today would simply be impossible, because no other lifting system can combine that kind of height with that kind of reach and load capacity all at once. The crane itself gets built in sections, growing taller as the building around it rises, often using a special climbing mechanism that adds new sections from the inside. A skilled operator sits in a cab near the top, reading radio communications from workers far below and placing loads with a precision that takes years of practice to develop. The tower crane does not move between sites. It is assembled for one project, does its job for months or years, and then gets dismantled once the building no longer needs it. Mobile crane. The tower crane stays fixed in one place and grows with the building around it. This one arrives, sets up in hours, lifts whatever needs lifting, and moves on to the next job the following day. That mobility is the entire reason the mobile crane exists, bringing heavy lifting capability to locations where a permanent crane would never be practical or cost-effective. Large rubber tires carry it across public roads between sites, while extendable outriggers deploy from the sides once it arrives, pushing down into the ground to create the stable base needed for safe lifting at full capacity. A telescopic boom extends upward and outward, reaching loads at height and swinging them into position with a combination of cables, counterweights, and precise hydraulic control. Mobile cranes show up at bridge construction, industrial maintenance, building renovation, and infrastructure repair, anywhere that a heavy lift is needed once or twice rather than continuously for months. Their flexibility makes them one of the most widely used lifting machines in the construction industry worldwide. Concrete mixer truck. Concrete has one critical limitation that almost no other building material shares. Once the mixing starts, the clock is running, and it never stops until the pour is complete. The concrete mixer truck exists specifically to manage that limitation, keeping the mixture in constant rotation during transport so it stays workable from the moment it leaves the plant until the last drop gets placed on site. The large rotating drum mounted on the back blends cement, water, sand, and aggregate continuously, preventing the material from beginning to set before it reaches its destination. Drivers coordinate tightly with construction teams because a delayed pour can mean an entire load set solid inside the drum, turning a valuable delivery into an expensive problem with no quick solution. For large projects, multiple trucks cycle in and out in a carefully timed sequence, ensuring a continuous supply that never leaves workers waiting. The concrete mixer truck made modern large-scale construction possible by solving one of the most fundamental logistical problems the industry had ever faced. Concrete pump truck. Pouring concrete into a foundation 2 stories below ground is manageable. Pouring it into a floor 60 stories above the street is an entirely different problem, and this machine exists specifically to solve it. The concrete pump truck takes fresh concrete delivered by a mixer and forces it upward and outward through a series of pipes, pushed by powerful hydraulic pressure through a long segmented boom that unfolds above the site like a mechanical arm reaching for a precise target. Without this machine, workers on upper floors of high-rise buildings would need to haul wet concrete upward manually, a process too slow and labor-intensive to be practical on any serious construction timeline. The boom can extend over obstacles, around existing structures, and into spaces a mixer truck could never reach from the street. Operators control every movement of the arm with careful attention, since an incorrectly placed pour can compromise the structural integrity of an entire floor slab. Asphalt paver. The smooth road surface that vehicles travel on every single day does not happen by accident, and it does not get laid by hand. The asphalt paver is the machine responsible for placing that surface with the consistency and precision required to make a road last for years rather than months. Hot asphalt mixture gets loaded into the front of the machine, carried along an internal conveyor, and spread behind the vehicle through a device called a screed, which levels and partially compacts the material into a uniform layer as the paver moves slowly forward. Getting this process right requires consistent machine speed, consistent material temperature, and precise screed settings, because any variation shows up in the finished surface as bumps, thin spots, or inconsistencies that wear out faster under traffic. The paver works closely with dump trucks feeding it continuous loads and road rollers following directly behind to compact the layer before it cools. That tight coordination between machines is what turns a line of separate equipment into a single functioning road building system. Road roller. Fresh asphalt comes off the paver soft, warm, and still vulnerable to permanent damage if it does not get compacted quickly enough. The road roller follows directly behind, and its job is to finish what the paver started by pressing that loose surface into a dense, stable layer capable of bearing years of heavy traffic without cracking or sinking. The heavy cylindrical drums roll back and forth across the surface, using their sheer weight to push air gaps out of the material and lock the particles together. Most modern rollers also vibrate those drums at high frequency, multiplying the compaction effect far beyond what weight alone could achieve. Timing is critical here, because asphalt that cools too much before compaction never fully bonds and will fail sooner than it should. Operators watch the surface temperature carefully, working fast enough to finish before the window closes, but methodically enough to cover every inch evenly. A road that gets skipped or rushed in this final step shows the damage within a few years. A road that gets it right can carry traffic reliably for decades.